going to get a chance to talk with Dave Thompson in a little bit. Dave is, he's one of the best news reporters out there. He's news director with Prairie Public. So Dave lived at the studio last night. That's how bad the snowstorm was. The interstate shut down. They're trying to dig out. Everything's going on. And so, by the time Dave gets home, he's going to wonder whether he's got fresh milk in the fridge because all the stores are empty in Bismarck. So Dave is that kind of guy. We'll visit with him about this storm and what it meant to so many communities in North Dakota and South Dakota. But I've got a chance to get to know Jamie Smith. He's the minority leader in the South Dakota House of Representatives. And Representative Smith is an individual that just says it. And I like that. He doesn't sit there and give you that political spin. He doesn't sit there and guard every word. He just sits there and says it, which is politicians that get elected because people respect them for that. I want to get a chance to visit with him. Representative Smith, Minority Leader, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Hey, it's great to be here with you today. Thanks for asking me to come.
Tough vote yesterday. You had to decide whether or not to impeach the Attorney General of the state of South Dakota. If I look at the numbers right, it was a close vote, and the Democrats voted unanimously to move forward on impeachment. Talk to me about that process. Talk to me about what happened.
Well, I, along with Will Mortensen and the Majority Leader Kent Peterson, a long time ago, last session actually brought forward the idea of impeaching the Attorney General after the killing of Joe Beaver. And so what we did yesterday, though, was had a vote finally again on these articles of impeachment. There were two articles, and like you said, it was really close. 36 votes is what we needed. 36 votes is what we got. And my caucus did make a difference. 8 Democrats in the House, we all stuck together. Again, we've done that all session long on a lot of key votes. We all stuck together, and now the Senate has to decide whether or not the Attorney General is in fact fit for office based on these articles of impeachment.
So the Attorney General said he didn't know, and yet he drove away from the scene. Governor Nome has called for his removal from office. A number of prominent Republicans around the state of South Dakota have as well. I guess I have to ask for an Attorney General who is the chief law enforcement officer of the state of South Dakota to flee a situation like that and not address it until the morning. How can he justify that? What did you hear that left you shaking your head and said, I just don't believe that?
Well, we haven't really got ever to talk to Jason about this. There's a lot of just strange things that went on with this. I mean, he did call 911 within 20 seconds probably of the crash. He called 911 and said he hit something. Was kind of fed the idea that he hit a deer, perhaps, but he didn't say that he hit a deer. He didn't know what he hit. Maybe he did, and that makes it even worse. But what happened was just a bunch of strange things. I mean, the sheriff did come out, but then the sheriff gave him his car. He drove back to Pierre. I mean, unfortunately, that sheriff is no longer alive. He took ill and did pass away. So there's a lot of questions that we just won't answer with him. There's a lot of weird circumstances here that come together to get us to the point that we got to.
So I have to ask this. You've driven all over the upper Midwest. I've driven all over the upper Midwest. I'm older than you. I get that, but I've hit deer.
I have too.
I've hit deer, and when I hit a deer, I stop and I check, and I see what's going on. And sometimes I've had to put that deer down. Sometimes I've had to go back or go to a neighbor's and get a gun to put that deer down. I don't understand how the excuse or the reasoning behind hitting a deer would mean that you wouldn't check on what you hit.
Yeah, I did too. I had lots of deer fur, stuck in my grill of my car. I did call 911 when I hit a deer most recently and took out a good portion of the front of my car because the deer needed to be put down and I didn't have a firearm to do it. And so it does either you were distracted and have no idea what you hit, or you know what you hit in that situation.
Yeah. You said that now this goes on to the South Dakota State Senate. There's a lot of people watching that maybe don't understand the process, how this doesn't mean that the Attorney General is out of a job yet. Could you walk people through that?
So, what we've done then is said that there are two charges basically that we have found that the Senate has to look at. And the first one is whether or not the accident alone and the things surrounding that merit expulsion from his job, basically. The second of those, and I'm probably not doing it enough justice in an explanation, I'm trying to simplify it here. The second one has to do with malfeasance in office, and that has to do with lying about things afterwards. So there's two, we'll call them charges, and then the Senate then has to take those charges up and find out whether or not they believe that he is guilty of those charges. If so, 2/3 of the body has to vote for them, and if that comes to fruition, then he would be no longer the Attorney General. Right now, he's on administrative leave. I'm not sure, they haven't figured out yet whether or not he's getting paid for that or not, but he did leave the AG office yesterday.
Well, was the administrative leave something that he decided, or was that something that, because of the actions of the House, was caused?
That was caused by being impeached yesterday. When you are under that impeachment, you may no longer hold that office until you're basically either convicted or cleared of those articles.
Now, you said that you haven't spoke to Jason. Can I ask this? Everybody's got staff, and everybody's got ways of communicating. Wasn't there any lobbying leading into a vote like this? If I heard you right, it was the exact number of votes that you needed. So you must have needed more than a majority, because the numbers I'm reading are 36-31. So,
you need 30. Yeah, you need 30. You need 30. You need 50% plus one.
Okay.
And so there are 70 people in our House, so that would make it any bill to pass has to have 36 votes.
Okay. I see. Yep.
So that's why the 36 comes in. As far as lobbying, he did send a strange letter out the night before, again pleading his case to us of why he doesn't believe he could be impeached. There were a lot of strange things going on, though, too, that got, made this just something that it shouldn't have been. Our governor as well was actively doing things to try to maybe influence the outcome of this, and that was frustrating as well. Our job as the legislature was to do our job. I think we've done that, and again, I was on the committee to come up with whether or not we should impeach, a recommendation from the House. I was in the minority. Two of us believed that this was impeachable. There were 6 people, though, that did a deep dive into this that felt that it was not an impeachable offense based upon the Constitution of the state of South Dakota. And those people are people of, they have integrity. The people I sat on that committee with, they worked hard to come to the conclusion they did too. And so I tell you what, it's not an easy decision. It wasn't an easy decision. And it wasn't an easy decision to bring the articles even. Will Mortensen, he did a good job, but that wasn't easy either.
Had Attorney General Ravnsborg, has he lost the support of South Dakota? I mean, in the end, to be the Attorney General, the people need to know that you adhere to law, because you are the chief law enforcement officer. Had the people of South Dakota written him off?
Well, that's what there's an overwhelming number of people that, have supported the decision that was made yesterday, support that. Many of them only know what they know from the press, and so there are nuances to people that maybe voted against this for whatever reason. But I will tell you, the people of South Dakota, I believe, support this. I can tell you that law enforcement really support this decision a lot. They had lost confidence in the Attorney General, and he's their leader.
Okay, that tells me a lot. As a former legislator, if law enforcement came forward and said, "Look, this needs to happen," that would have definitely led to me voting the way that you voted and the way your caucus voted. You mentioned the governor, and there were those of us that were looking from afar at Governor Noem as though before any of the facts came out that she was using this for political purposes to draw attention. And I didn't know if it was because she saw him as a threat politically, if she thought and felt the public winds were going to blow that way or what. But, you said that there was due diligence done by people on both sides of the issue in the legislature. It seemed like Governor Noem was leading the band early. And I'm curious what your thoughts on that are.
It was just frustrating to be a part of that and to see that. The legislature is the legislature. The executive branch is the executive branch, and she definitely had her opinion. But at a certain point, we asked that influence stop, and it always that wasn't respected. That barrier wasn't respected, and I can't speak to her motive or why she would do something or why she did that, but I can tell you that it was frustrating along the way to have the different things happen. I think you also reported on the billboards that were run on some of us down here in South Dakota. Earlier, you've talked about that, at least on your show. The billboards were another example of just not the way we do politics in South Dakota. I don't think it's how you do stuff in North Dakota either.
In the little bit of time that we have with Representative Jamie Smith from South Dakota, the minority leader, I want to talk to him about his race that he's making against Governor Noem in that governor's chair. Representative Smith, what made you decide to make this race?
It had gotten into session. We still didn't have a candidate that was stepping forward. There were a couple people that we were hoping on running, and it's the kind of thing where when you know that you got the skills and the qualifications to do a job, and you look left and right, nobody's stepping up, and you got people coming to you saying, "Jamie, we'd like you to do this." You look in the mirror and you say, "I am the guy. This is my time. I got to do this." I step forward, and that's how I made the decision now, just based upon the fact that I have the qualifications, the skills to do it. It's not going to be easy, and it wasn't exactly the plan I had. I was not at that point necessarily looking to become governor, but sometimes you got to step up and lead when people need you to lead.
So what's the difference? Because if I'm that South Dakota voter, if I'm my neighbors who I can start naming off, if I live in Rosselt or Clare City or New Effington, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking and weighing whether or not it's Jamie Smith or Kristi Noem, what's the difference? What separates you?
Well, you want to have somebody that shares your values, I believe. And first of all, you want somebody that's focused on the state of South Dakota, that's only aspiration is to take care of people. And really that's our job as leaders in our state. When you're a leader at any level, it's about people. And that's what I have a heart for, is for the people of South Dakota. But I'm also just focused on South Dakota. I'm not going to go outside of South Dakota to try to find the most conservative problems we can to bring them back to our state, things that don't exist, to just stir the pot and create my name. I'll never do that. My job is to work on solving real problems here in the state of South Dakota by sitting down and tackling the tough problems. I'm also willing to talk to anybody, to sit down and talk to people I don't agree with necessarily, because through that process of dialogue, you can come to an agreement. Compromise isn't a dirty word either. You got to sit down. You got to try to figure out how to solve problems. But we don't have to bring problems to the state of South Dakota, and we definitely don't need to try to further a personal agenda to grow one's, credibility throughout the entire country. Yeah. I'm not going to do that.
Well, and as you know, there's a lot of people from South Dakota that watch Beck News, and I think it's wise of you to come on. I appreciate that, just because I think people need, if they don't know you, to get to know you better. But I will tell you this, knowing South Dakota as well is what I do, and being so close to South Dakota, there is an undercurrent here of individuals that believe that are Republican, buddies of mine that I played ball against, that really look at Kristi Noem. They're Republican, and they're kind of tired of this whole national attention. You know, I want to be seen on a world stage rather than focusing on South Dakota. But they're not coming forward with it. They're not sitting there, you know, hanging out at the corner bar in Rosselt and talking about it, because it can be an incredibly unpopular thing with the next guy who's got his Trump hat on. And so how do you, I mean, is that out there? Are you seeing that down in Sioux Falls, for example?
Well, you bet. And I've seen it all across the state. I have people that walk up to me and they kind of whisper to me. They say, Jamie, I'm voting for you. Might not say a whole lot about it. I'm a Republican. And I'm like, well, okay, that's great. You, first of all, don't have to keep it a secret. I'd love it if they'd go out and say it out loud and share it. But you know what? I'm okay if they feel I can't say it out loud, though, too, for whatever reason. At the end of the day, what matters is what happens in the voting booth, you know. And I just want South Dakotans to know that I am a servant leader that cares about the state of South Dakota and cares about their well-being. And ultimately, the decisions we make affect them. And so things that matter to me are the things that matter to them, you know, taking care of our economy. But in order to have jobs in our state, we need to have housing. We need to have, so you need places for people to live. You also need to have a healthy workforce. So you need to have, I'm for Medicaid expansion in the state of South Dakota. We're going to do it with Governor Dugard, and then it didn't happen. You know, we got Kristi Noem in here, haven't talked about it. It's time. It's time to do that. I also want to promise people in South Dakota the fact that if they vote on something through the referendum process or through the constitutional, you know, change in the voter booth, my job as governor is to support that decision. You know, we've done a huge slow roll on medical marijuana in our state. It's finally getting put out there, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen as fast as it should. The voters wanted that, but they also wanted recreational to be legalized and taxed in the state of South Dakota. And our governor sued ourselves on that bill. And that's not a reality. I think the legislature dropped the ball on that, bringing that back. And our job is to support the will of the voters.
So how big of an asset is it, Representative Smith, for you to have worked so well across the aisle in the South Dakota legislature? If you find yourself in that governor's seat and you need to be able to work with the majority party in the legislature, how big of an asset is it that you know these men and women that you would have to work with?
You know, Joel, it's a great question, and it's huge. I have strong relationships and good relationships with people in both the House and the Senate, from the most conservative to the most progressive Republicans on the other side of the aisle. And I would say, and they would tell you, they have a good relationship with me. There's not a one of them I can't go to and talk to. And, you know, again, we might not agree on everything, but there's a level of respect that exists between us, and that's been lacking in the state of South Dakota for the last couple of years here. It's a respect between the two branches of government, and you know, I have the ability to day one sit down and talk about what our priorities are, and they're not just going to be Democratic priorities; they're South Dakota priorities, because really at the end of the day, it's not about our party; it's about the people of the state of South Dakota.
Everybody talks about too much money in politics, but they don't acknowledge the fact that advertising works. And I work in an industry where I can vouch for that and fully admit that we're not liars when it comes to the fact advertising works. So you do need money. You know, are you raising a couple bucks? Are people connecting? And quite frankly, Jamie, how do they connect? If they like what they just heard from you, how can they make sure that they back what they feel about you with their checkbook?
Yeah, you know, Governor Noem has $12 million from her races that she's taken across or trips that she's taken around the country, going to, you know, large, big donor events. And that's not the way Jamie Smith operates. Jamie Smith is not independently wealthy. We have done a good job in the first month getting out and raising money, and we're working really hard at it. I can tell you, though, we don't have anywhere near the 12 million that she has. But, you know, we're not going to need 12 million to do this. We are going to need a couple million to do it, though. And they can give money, or they can give time or feedback at smithforgov.org. It's that easy. SMITHFORGOV.org. And the website will direct people to different places, different ways to give. But there are lots of different ways to show your support. And I really appreciate the opportunity to get out and meet people. And I've done that on your show here today, too. Meeting people is what it's all about, letting them know who I am, that I share their values.
Jamie, thanks for the time. I appreciate it. It's a busy time for you, and I hope we have this opportunity again, and be safe on the campaign trail. Good to have you on.
You bet. Thank you, and you be safe up there. I heard you got a lot of snow this week.
Yeah, so. there'll be some shoveling out. Some of the guys I work with here on this TV show, they had to be brought in with the 3/4 ton, and I think there's 2 guys in the whole office. So you're right about that. All right, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.